This is the College of Knowledge. Lovemore Nyatsine, Founder and Director, Muzinda Hub. Lovemore is a hands-on, result-oriented and experienced leadership, strategy and transformation executive in the technology, media and telecommunication sector.
Let me start by telling you a little story. The chicken lies in an egg, and the auk lies in an acorn, and the butterfly lies in a cocoon. Great things start small, and great things start in the heart. I'd like to tell you a little story that I've heard my boss, Mr. Mbweni, speak about. Many years ago, about 20 years ago, during a very difficult time, Mr. Mbweni, who is the current CEO of Econet Wireless, went to the founder of Econet Wireless, Mr. Strive Masiwa. Things were really hard. He had not been paid for over 3 months. There was pressure from his family, there was pressure from friends, there was pressure from everywhere. So he went and said, Mr. Masiwa, things are really hard. I don't know what to do. And just around that time, as they were talking, there was an article in the Financial Gazette on a Thursday like today. We said Masiwa's dream crumbles because there was no hope for Econet getting a license. As Mr. Mbweni had the conversation with Mr. Masiwa, he said, but there is no license. But Mr. Masiwa responded to him and said, Doug, the license is here. I want to encourage somebody today that indeed you may not see the evidence, but sometimes when you carry something in your heart, it's always there. Even when you start a new idea, like Simba, Simba was here and talking about his new business, how he's even, struggled with depression, painkillers and all that. But my brother Simba, it is here. Keep holding on. But I want to share with you an example of some of the things that we've been doing, obviously, in Econet. There was a problem, as many of you may know, about 2 months ago. There was a cholera outbreak, big crisis. Over 10,000 infections. And there was also, as you know, 55 deaths, regrettably. And cholera is a medieval disease, it's a primitive disease. People don't need to die from cholera in a modern state in this day and age. So we obviously responded, to the challenge that we had seen, affecting, the people in Glenview and Budiriro. So we went there. And one of the things that we said was, look, let's actually see how we can solve the problems. And the problems were multi-layered, they were multifaceted. There was the problem of waste itself. There was the problem of the city council failing to actually pick the refuse and taking it to Pomona because they didn't have the trucks, because the trucks were down. There was a problem of, obviously, waste-induced diseases that were obviously, afflicting the people of Glenview and Budiriro. But another secondary problem was also the problem of youth unemployment. So we went there and said, how can we actually, using our entrepreneurial lens, look at this problem, not as a problem, but as an opportunity? So we started to think of what is it that we could do in solving this particular problem. So one of the things that we have done to date is to form 2 groups, cooperatives or community-based organizations, which are made up of 100 youths from Glenview and 100 youths from Budiriro. So there are 2 of them. So we said, let's change the whole model of waste management that the city council is doing at the moment because it's not sustainable. So once we did that, we then established these 2 groupings. And we said waste must be managed at a community level. So the model that we are now following is called the community-based waste management model for solving the waste problem. So once we did that, we said, look, let's build what we call materials recovery facilities or centers. So what then happens is when the waste is collected at a household level, it's actually sorted at a household level. It's sorted into paper, it's sorted into plastic, it's sorted into bottles, it's sorted into PET, it's sorted into aluminium, and any other even biodegradable waste. So what we've now done is, with these materials recovery facilities having been established, we said, now let's ensure that the young people who are not employed, the 100 that I spoke about, let's get them jobs. And some of them will be employed as waste couriers. So they will be ferrying the waste from the household, taking it to the different cages that we are deploying in Glenview and Budiriro. As they are ferrying that waste, they will obviously be earning something in the process. But they will also be ferrying it from the different pickup points of that waste, ferrying it to the material recovery facilities. And there are 2 of those. So in just one swoop, we have actually solved a multifaceted problem, but in an entrepreneurial way. Because what's now happening is that the youth will now obviously get jobs, but importantly, the problem of waste is now going to be solved. But even better, as the waste is taken to the materials recovery facilities, we have spoken to different recycling partners who will now come and buy this waste. And as they buy this waste, the communities will actually start to make money out of that waste. So what would have been a problem has now become actually an opportunity. It's a question of actually turning, trash into treasure. And it's about looking at problems from an entrepreneurial lens. This is what we have actually done, over the last few months as we seek to bring some solutions to some of the problems that our communities are currently facing. But even better, the biodegradable waste that's actually, dropped off in these materials recovery facilities will be turned into an organic liquid fertilizer, because when you put it into special compost or biodegradable digesters, they actually, consume that. And when they secrete stuff, they secrete this, black liquid, which is actually an organic fertilizer, which is very rich. And it will now be packaged and it will now be sold, as packaged, and it will create jobs for these youngsters. So we believe that there is a way in which you can look at problems and say, how do we solve them in a sustainable, profitable, and purposeful way, as my brother Simba mentioned earlier on. So these are some of the things that actually businesses can do, solving problems. I recall many years ago, Mr. Maswa said that I didn't wake up and said I wanted to become a billionaire, but I woke up and said I wanted to solve problems. And this is what we can all do, because there's so many opportunities today in our country, around us, in our communities, that are looking for somebody who can solve them. I recall the year was 2001 and we were in Nigeria, 8th floor, Cowrie House, Obafemi Olo Road in Victoria Island. And we were just launching Econet Wireless Nigeria. And as we were there, Mr. Maswa was speaking to the staff as we were about to launch in Nigeria. And he said, did you know that today, as we are standing here, this is 2001, 75% of Africans have never had a phone ring, never mind holding one. But guess what? Today, as we stand here, more than 1 billion lines have now been deployed in Africa. This is transformation, and it's entrepreneurs solving problems, but also improving livelihoods in the process. To do this, you need to operate from the heart. And I want to briefly talk about 3 things that are important as entrepreneurs. The things that motivate entrepreneurs, to make a difference. You need, first of all, to have something birthed in your heart. Remember when Mr. Maswa said that the license is here in the heart. So the greatest ideas that will change this world are those that are born out of conviction. Those that, when you have it in your heart, it doesn't matter what's happening around you. You will say, I will continue to hold on. Because it's very important. The Bible says that guard your heart with all due diligence, because out of it flows the issues of life. So it's very important that, as entrepreneurs, wherever we are motivated from the heart. Once it comes from the heart, it then affects your head. You think in a particular way. My brother Doug there was talking about the way he thinks, the way he's wired to think. It's all coming from his personal convictions, the way he has been wired to think. And that is very important because you've got to think in a particular way if you're going to make a difference. It's very tough out there. You were speaking about a VUCA environment, volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous environment. Without conviction, without a certain attitude that says, I can do this, you will quickly give up. But you know, when it comes from the heart and it touches your head, it starts to move your hands and your feet in a particular direction. And that is very important, that there is that coordination from the heart to the head and to your hands and your feet. There is need for a fresh approach in terms of how we look at life, in terms of how we look at our businesses, in terms of how we look at our organizations. Where should it start? We don't need to be pursuing success, but we need to pursue significance. People will never remember how much money you made, but they will always remember the impact that you had in their lives. So it's very important that it starts from the heart. But where is the heart? The heart is about self. Be able to start with you as an individual. People will not buy your product or your service. They buy into you first. So invest in who you are. Then you will never struggle in a world that is trying to put you in a box. Because you'll be driven by convictions. And as you lead yourself, there are certain qualities that are important. Integrity, accountability, professionalism, meaning what you say and saying what you mean. All those are very important. But as you do that, it's also important to work with others, the people around you. There's a proverb that says that, an African proverb that says that if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go with others. But for you to be able to go with others, you need to be somebody who others are willing to make an investment in. Earlier on, Mr. Gwadizo spoke about the networks. He spoke about the people that have been, around you, who have been supporting you, now from one country and 4 countries. Why? Because of the networks, and that is very important. But, for you to be able to do that, have the empathy, have the human face, be able to connect with people in a deep and meaningful way. Sometimes these days, because of social media, it gives us an impression that, we are popular. It gives us an impression that we have a lot of connections. But how many deep and meaningful relationships do you have? That is very important. So learn to connect with people. Because you know what? Your network determines your net worth. At the end of the day, it's very important. Because you know what? Between you and your next opportunity is a person. That's how this world works. And as you do that, as you lead others, it's then important to lead change. Be a game changer. Disrupt. Think about the things that you can actually do in your community. It doesn't have to take, an earthquake for you to make a difference. Sometimes it's very simple things like plant a tree. If you are a carrier of the divine life, wherever you go, you must be a carrier of life. Things must not be destroyed when you are there. You must be somebody who changes things when you go there. Be a disruptor. Change the game. If I had time, I would tell you that in 2011, there was a certain bank in this country that was established in 1892. But all the Zimbabweans put together, there were only 800,000 people who had bank accounts. Did you know that? Did you know that? Did you know that? There is a bank that had been established in 1892, but there were only 800,000 Zimbabweans who had bank accounts. What it means is that the bulk of the population was economically excluded, was financially excluded. But guess what? A disruptor came, 2011, EcoCash. Right now, as we are here, how many customers do you think EcoCash has got? 8.2 million. Disruption. Now Gogo in the village has got a bank account. Now Sekuru in the village has got a bank account. People are now able to transact and doing business because of technology. That is game changing. That is disruptive, but in a positive way. And as you do that, we will start to uplift our communities. We will start to see all our communities, being changed, piece by piece, province by province, district by district, ward by ward. Our communities will change as we do that. So what you need to do is to identify the things that you can actually do. Identify based on an awareness of who you are and what you can do, your strengths, your competencies. Identify what you can do so that you can determine the type of, so that you can determine the type of footprint that you are going to leave in this world. Today, even as we are gathered here tonight, there are certain businesses that are more than $50 billion businesses that were not there 10 years ago. Today, the biggest hotel group in the world is Airbnb, and they don't have any hotels. The biggest transport company in the world today is actually Uber, and they don't own any cars. That is what technology is doing to disrupt, but also importantly, to change people's lives. So there are a lot of opportunities that we can think about. I could also speak about Dropbox. I could speak about companies like WeWork and many others that have been, disrupting our lives in a fundamental way.
New pathways and possibilities. Improving the quality of life for our people as we connect them digitally around the world. Even in the most unlikely places. We are answering Africa's call. Because we speak African. Econet, inspired to change your world.
Thank you very much.